So, hello everybody, how are you doing? Happy New Year. I hope you had a fantastic holiday season. And now we are back with the first webinar of 2024. And just before doing the introductions of our exciting panelists, I would like to inform our community that we have the first African iGaming magazine out, and you can check it out on our page. That is across our social media pages on LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere we have posted that. Thank you very much. We have that exciting magazine out, and we have covered quite a number of interviews, articles, and I believe it's going to be helpful to somebody out there. So let's get started. Today we are going to have a webinar whereby we are discussing about crash projects. That is projects as gambling projects that fail to succeed on the African continent, considering that most of these companies, whenever they are starting up, they put a lot of investment. So the reason why we are discussing this is not to defame anybody, but to share what we think about the industry so that we can be helpful to somebody who wants maybe to set up, or somebody who has already set up and they are finding it difficult to penetrate within the African gambling sector. My name is Jeremiah Mangi. I'm the CEO iGaming Africa, the top media platform for the gambling sector in Africa. I will also allow my panelists to introduce themselves and then we get the ball rolling.
Thank you, Jeremiah. I'm Gali Hartov. I'm the CEO of Warrior Lab. We're a global management consulting firm. We offer expert and award-winning strategic services to the iGaming industry with a niche in B2C operations, VIP program creation, player development, optimization, and growth, as well as retention and conversion strategies.
Hi guys, thanks for inviting me. My name is Maxime. I am an iGaming expert with almost 15 years experience. Started working for a tier 1 operator in Russia, worked there for more than 12 years, and the last 2.5 years I work at Sportradar and help our clients with the various topics, strategy, operations, platforms, trading. For the last 2 years, I was very close to a project that happened in Africa. So now I'm familiar with such regions as Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana. Basically everything related to iGaming. This is where my expertise is.
Hi guys, my name is Brian Ondeki. I'm the CEO of Bizin Africa Gaming Consult. Bizin, we deal with consultancy in the gaming industry. We offer services such as license acquisition, market research. We also offer services such as B2B marketing for B2B platforms such as Sportradar. We also offer tax consultancy, and we also offer basically that's what we offer at the Bizin. That's why I work. We've worked with Jeremiah for some time, but now Jeremiah is more into media, and I'm also into consultancy. But sometimes we exchange ideas, but mostly we work together.
Yeah, thank you very much for those brief introductions. I'm happy that today we are having a panelist. We are having very experienced panelists in the industry, and therefore, whatever they are going to share with us, I believe is going to be very, very beneficial. And before we start, I would like to appreciate the webinar sponsors, Africa Gaming Expo. That is Africa Gaming Expo Limited, which is also abbreviated as Edge Lagos 2024. They are the organizers of the Edge Lagos 2024 event that will be happening between the 12th and the 15th of this month of March 2024 at Lagos, Nigeria. It's a conference that is going to bring together industry experts from the fintech industry, gaming, and even the other industries that are closer to the gaming and fintech industry. And therefore, we appreciate their support and we welcome everybody to check their website, edgelagos.com, so that you can be able to book your spot or know what is going to be on offer at the conference. So let's jump into this conversation, my brothers. Uh, Gandhi, maybe you can introduce us to this topic we are discussing today, whereby we are trying to find out why some of these companies are failing to penetrate and maybe win big, because there is a big market. We are aware that Africa is a very big market, but the market share is only enjoyed by a few companies. If you come to Kenya, for example, you'll realize that maybe it's less than 10 companies that are making good money. If you go to Nigeria, maybe around 15. So can we find out why this is not happening to a good number like we see in Europe or developed countries? And I will be happy if everybody can have an input on this question, because it forms the basis of the discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we're looking at Africa as a focused area within the industry, I think anyone that's ever worked in Africa or for a company that is focused on African markets, it's a niche area to focus on. It's different to Europe, it's different to North America, Latin America. Africa as a whole is an incredibly diverse market. It requires a deep understanding of the industry, both from a cultural perspective as well as from a country perspective. I think where a lot of companies tend to fail is in missing the mark, in understanding who they are trying to offer services to. There's a lot of areas, which I'm sure we're going to unpack today, focused on this. But from my side, coming from South Africa, being South African, having worked in the African market and explored multiple territories and working with clients throughout the continent, it really comes down for me, coming from the B2C side, operator side, to building up trust. Africa as a market, as a demographic, we're a superstitious nation. We don't simply give in because you're throwing money at us or you have pretty adverts or whatever the case may be. You really need to win us over. But at the same time, if you're able to accomplish that trust factor, we're loyal. We will buy into brands that we believe in. We will buy into operators that invest in us, community engagement, or understand us as a culture and speak our language. These are various areas where I think a lot of companies have a lot of room to work towards. It's not something that is accomplished quickly. So while we have ambitious operators that are coming into Africa with a lot of international funding and investor funding, with the capital to build a really competitive brand, they're falling short when it comes down to people and how to convert. From my side, it would be a case of looking into Africa from an acquisition standpoint, conversion standpoint, affiliation standpoint. Our affiliates don't function in the same way that global affiliates may function. African affiliates are very localized. They focus on certain areas. If I look at South Africa, some of the leading affiliates in South Africa work exclusively with South African companies, and they're not global. Those affiliates have a very specific way of going about acquisition. They do it in a very South African-centric way. But conversion and working with those acquisition partners is pivotal to the success in Africa. And with many other regions, Africa being no exception to that, there is a breakdown in that communication with some of our acquisition partners, finding the right audience, understanding the segments that we're going after, being wise and strategic, that we don't go after a saturated portion of the market, that you're not trying to compete with the behemoths in the market already there, because your budgets are not going to supersede what they have available at their disposal. It's about strategic and calculated decisions. And I think that also comes down to retention as an extension of acquisition and conversion. Once the players are through the door, what are you doing to keep them? How are you retaining your players? And why a lot of operations tend to fail is because they don't know how to keep those players in their companies, without potentially splashing out excessively or overcompensating them. This, of course, leads to budget burnout. It leads to areas where retention is, I would say, overcompensating for other shortfalls. And it's about trying to understand where companies can invest better and more calculated directions going towards player development and growing existing client bases. It's in Africa compared to any other market, I would say it's the long game. We need to look at Africa as long-term potential. We're a young demographic. We're the youngest demographic in the world. We have an average age around 20 or so, and it's not going to be something that we achieve overnight. Companies need to be patient. They need to invest in their players. They need to develop them, and through that, they'll find long-term loyalty, VIP, high potential value.
Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction, Gadi. You touched on very key points, that is on localization, retention, and these all points to research. But I believe there are some companies that have already done that research. They have localized their products. They have tried anything humanly possible to make it on the continent, but seems like there are some giants who they cannot beat. Brian, I know you have a good background in this. Can you point to us a picture, or you can try to explain to us why this massive fails?
Thank you, thank you. What I will say, in addition to what Galia said, when you are coming to the market, there are some things that you need to consider. The first thing is, when you are coming to Africa, there are already existing operators. What are you bringing into the market? Because if you are coming with the same products that are already in the market, it will be hard for you to get new subscribers to your site, because they already have operators they prefer. For example, if you are coming to the Kenyan market, most players know the sites where they play. But if you are bringing in something new that maybe can persuade them to move from the current operators they are playing with to come to your site, then that will be an addition to the what Gali had said, because you can do your research, maybe make sure your product is localized, make sure that you have a good affiliate system, make sure that everything is okay. You've done everything that you are supposed to do. You've done your market research. You've done your everything that you need to do so that you can get into this market. But when you come to this market, then you discover that maybe it becomes hard for you to break through. It's because first, before you go into a certain market, you have to identify a gap that you're going to fill there. Maybe you've discovered that the existing operators are missing certain games, maybe some virtual games that they are not offering, or they don't have like they have virtual games, but the virtual games don't have like a good RTP so that players can maybe win from them. Or maybe there's some gaps that you can identify before you come to a certain market. For example, if you want to come to Kenya and you've identified that maybe most players currently want to play on crash games, you do your research, then you come and launch your product. It might work because you did your research, you identified a gap, and now you've implemented it. You see, now for most operators, they just want to copy. You see a certain brand, maybe it was doing well in Europe, it went to Africa, they did some few things here and there, they did some marketing, and they became successful. And you also want to do that. You also want to go to that market, do some research, maybe try to copy them. I'll insist on people, on operators who are coming in to try and be unique, because your uniqueness is what will sell you out to the players. Also, another thing is most operators are just come with their product from Europe, come with it to Africa the way it is. It's not localized. If it's not localized, then it will be a challenge for you to sell it in Africa, because uh, it will be a challenge for you to sell it in Africa because most players will not relate with it. And localization, it's not about the product alone; it's about the features in the product, the markets. Maybe like in Africa, you might find that the most popular markets in like 1x2, uh, 1x2, maybe over 1.5, under 1.5, or maybe goal. But you might find your your sport bookers maybe markets that are maybe popular in Asia, like handicap. So you have to localize it so that it fits to the audience in Africa. Another thing is on localization is the bonuses. The bonuses for Africans, it's a new concept. Bonuses, they believe that if you give them a bonus, it should not come with any terms. Like you don't tell them like this, I've given you a bonus, you need to roll it over like 3, 4 times. They don't understand that. So you need to come with a simple bonus that works. So I have seen like for most operators, especially those that come from Europe, they come with the concept of bonus that works in Europe. Like maybe you deposit money, we give you maybe 50% bonus, then this bonus we have to roll it over to a certain turnover. Most Africans don't understand that. How do you ensure that you are rolling out a bonus that will be successful in Africa? Because the bonus is what will sell you from other operators. Because some operators might not have such type of bonus, but if you have a good bonus engine that works well, it will attract more players to your site. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. You've brought up really key issues, and I will put the point on bonuses separately because it's a discussion on its own. We will touch on it later on. But for now, I would like us to get Maxim's view on this question, but also Maxim, coming from a tech background, I believe you can also help us to understand, from the angle of product differentiation, having your product be unique. What our brother has just mentioned there. How do you also ensure that this is helpful? But of course, we want to look at the solutions later. For now, let's first of all look at the problems, and then we will tackle the solutions later. So can you give us your view on the question, and also you can add in something from the background you have. You can also help us to understand how these companies can do it after you highlighted some of the reasons why these companies are not making it.
Sure. Thanks, Gali. Thanks, Brian. Few very important points. I think generally when you speak about challenges and problems, I think there are at least dozens of them that can be mentioned, and the time that we have is simply not enough to unveil all of them. Probably what I would like to point out in the beginning is because it all starts usually with the market research. And probably what I find the challenge here is not carrying out the research, but rather driving out conclusions. Because the problem comes when what conclusions do you take out of the market research? If you look at, I don't know, some companies that can be quite successful in the market using some outdated technology, you can come up with a conclusion, oh, well, I probably bring a better technology here in the market and I will win it. But in reality, in many African states, what you will find is that there's a reason why sometimes operators stick to a bit older UIs, less less traffic consuming websites, and so on. Same comes to the marketing part, right? You would also see that many African operators would invest a lot in traditional marketing, and coming from European gaming sector, you would probably think, well, look, we have these new technologies, we can go in with digital marketing and win it all. But in reality, the way you should actually interpret the market research is that traditional marketing is very important. It is very important to have in certain markets have billboards out, have some houses painted. Some of the cities here in Kenya, I can see you put advertising on the houses using a paint, or even radio, TV, and having people on the streets talking to a community and advocating for your brand. And then, of course, this should also be powered by technology. If you have agents in the streets, they need to have solutions how to register your players, how to help them deposit money, and this is all the technology part. And same then goes into issues that you would see in the market when it comes to pretty much all the spheres. Payments. Pretty much in all markets you would have here, you would need to have at least 3-4 payment solutions that will help you cover the market. And unfortunately, not all the services are stable enough, so you will have some of them going down on a daily basis. And I'm literally meaning that on a daily basis, you see some services going down, but the customers, they want to deposit money, they want to play. It's Champions League time or it's English Premier League time, they will not wait. If you don't have a backup solution, they will switch to another provider. So the technology part is very, very important. Probably a few more points that I would like to mention as well for the challenges is when it comes to the CRM, and I think this is one of the key parts. Gali mentioned that segmenting your players wisely and using technology to build those segments and micro segments is absolutely crucial. Because if you try to target millions of customers out there, and most of the countries are highly populated, what's going to happen, you will burn your marketing budgets. Instead, you need to do it wisely. You need to identify your high rollers, your VIP segments, and offer them better bonuses, better service, maybe set up a dedicated team that will be calling them, and not necessarily to convince them place a bet today, but at least to establish this connection. I think this notion of trust and this creation of bonding is highly important in the African market. You should not just come there and say, hey, you know what, we are big, we are experienced, we have the money. This is important to a certain extent, but I think what is mostly important is to really create this bonding. How do you make friends with people out there? How do you convince them that you are a trustworthy partner, that you are a friend of them, that you are a party that they would like to put their money in? That is very important and not easy to do, but technology can help you with that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Maxim. Very, very nice points there. I know that we had actually a podcast with Gali. I think it was late last year, and this point on product differentiation, on how you can make your product unique, player segmentations, and the likes, so that you can understand the audience that you are dealing with. Because Max, you are very right. You cannot be targeting 1 million players with one SMS. You'll have to know who you are sending a certain SMS to. For example, somebody made a deposit yesterday and they placed a bet. Why should you be sending them a message in the morning, reminding them to place a bet again when the one that they placed has not even been resulted? So player segmentation is very, very important, and the use of technology can be very, very helpful in that regard. So, Gabi, now, because for the benefit of those who have not yet listened to that webinar, can you give us like a brief on how these techniques can be applied to make kind of this strategy work for operators?
Yes, absolutely. I think when we're looking at specific strategies, or at least the approaches that have proven successful in Africa with various companies, especially companies when first entering the African market. What we see a lot of, and we've done various workshops and advisory on this, is how to bring teams closer together, to collaborate closer together. A lot of the time you'll find with African-facing operators, it is a case that there is a center of operation based locally in whatever region it is focused on, with some external headquarters or a foreign-based headquarters that is disconnected from Africa. In many cases, we find that there would be African-based operations with a European-based headquarter. And for us, what we find with these strategies is there is a bit of a disconnect. It's fine to have a global operation, to have teams based in the regions that you focused on, but communication strategies, collaboration strategies, these need to be cohesive. It needs to be in a position where the African contingent that is focused on the region that you're serving is in the loop, has autonomy, and is a part of the decision-making process, because those are the people who understand your audience. It doesn't necessarily have to be that every function has to be local, but the strategies need to at least be inclusive to the point that where it counts, it's local. In addition to that, when you're looking at the type of specific strategies, it's very important to outline as an operator the goals and objectives that you're trying to achieve. It's important as well to also manage expectation and ambition. So if you're coming into the African market, a new operator, and the goal and objective is we want to be top 3 in our first year, that's probably not going to happen. So it's realistic to look at it from a more objective position and consider for yourself what is realistic, what do our budgets allow for us to accommodate, and at the same time, what can we achieve and where are the quick wins, the best ROIs, and how can we achieve the goals for year 1, 2, 3, 5, 10. And from there, it's a case of going at it gradually. Like I mentioned earlier, Africa is a long-term game. We're a young demographic, and companies need to understand that it's not going to be a case of quick money. We're not a developed industry in Africa as we are in Europe, for example. There's a lot of other factors that need to be considered, and those strategies need to be inclusive. So when we're looking at how to, say, capture a market, or how do you persuade players to jump ship from operators that they may have been a part of for 2, 3 or so years, you need to have something unique. You need to be able to get across something as a unique selling point. And I don't mean going into a market and sponsoring every football team, because that's not unique and you're going to blow your marketing budget very quickly. When we're looking at the uniqueness and how to sell your company in Africa, it needs to be something that speaks to a particular focus point, and then you build a strategy on how to support that. So having a fantastic acquisition funnel is great, but if your retention strategy is weak, you're going to just disappoint yourself by spending all this money effectively on acquisition only to lose it down the line to retention. So strategies need to be complementary. It cannot be focused on just 1 or 2 points. You need to look at it from the bigger picture, especially when you're new to the market. It was mentioned earlier that market research is a huge component of entering the market. 100%. You need to understand how to develop these strategies focused on the demographics and functions within your organization. And if you're able to understand what you're trying to achieve and how to build it articulately and collaboratively, you will succeed inevitably. And I think that's the takeaway from strategies in a very high level nutshell.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gali. The point I like most is on trust and research. I know it's Brian who mentioned it earlier, that companies need to do proper research when they are entering this market. And at Bizin, the company that Brian heads as the CEO, one of the services, of course, is research. And one of the things that we have realized is that successful brands try as much as possible to win the hearts of their customers, like building trust with those customers, getting them to trust them, to trust the brand. If a customer wins, you don't have to make them waiting until tomorrow for you to pay. Even if it's how much, you pay them as fast as possible. If if I mean if there is an issue that needs to be solved, maybe a game was delayed. How are you communicating that information to the customer so that you don't lose them? Because some of these challenges lead to brands losing customers. But again, it was not a mistake from the company side, but a mistake from maybe the providers of that link. So, Brian, can you tell us now how brands can build trust based on the case studies that we have done at our brand? Can you tell us what you think can be done to get to win the hearts of these customers?
Okay, thank you. As you've mentioned, you've talked about how do brands respond to customers, like especially if a customer has won a game and they want to withdraw their money. How fast are they able to get their money? So when building trust with customers, the first thing, okay, you've done your strategies, you've done some acquisitions. Now you have a database of customers who are playing on your platform. Now the next thing is to build trust with these customers. And how do you build this trust? The first thing you do is ensuring you have an efficient customer care system, because customers want anytime they ask a question, anytime they have a complaint, it's handled as immediately as possible. One of the challenges most operators do, maybe especially those who come from Europe, is you will find that the customer care team is based maybe in Kenya, or it's based in Africa, and then uh, the technical team is based in Europe. Now it takes time to respond to an issue. Maybe there was some game that was postponed and a certain bet has not been settled. Now the customers complained. I sent a request to the customer care team. The customer care team has to send the request back to Europe. Then they have to wait maybe from Europe or America to get feedback. So it takes time. So the first thing to build trust with customers is to ensure you have an efficient customer care system that is responsive, that makes sure that the customers get assisted as quickly as possible. The next thing is to ensure that the platform is always responsive and online, because if a customer maybe tries to visit the site and sometimes is told maybe the site is under repair or it has a downtime, they will get suspicious, because they will wonder, like, I deposited my money in the morning, I wanted to play in the evening, but the site has disappeared. So it kills the trust of the customers. So it's good to ensure on the technology side that the site is always online, it's working, there are games that can be played. The games don't have any issues, like they don't buffer, maybe some odds don't disappear. And also uh, ensure that also when the customers deposit, the money reflects immediately on their accounts. So such issues build trust with customers. And another thing that operators can use to build trust with customers is engaging them. Maybe on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, always ensure that there are promotions that can engage customers, so that customers can feel that this is a brand that we can relate with. Maybe you go to the streets, meet the customers, go to various regions across a certain geo, maybe across the country, meet customers, meet and greet, do some promotions, give back to the community. So it builds trust with customers. Customers are able to understand that this is our brand, because we always see it on the street. We always see it on street. They are helping the community, they are supporting our local football teams, maybe they are building schools. So customers will feel that you will create a bond between an operator and the customer. And another thing that that builds players' confidence is also ensuring that you protect their welfare. Ensure that players, maybe there are some players who might play more, maybe they are losing a lot. It's good to have a customer care system that ensures that it monitors the welfare of the players. If there's a player who is having an issue, maybe you see that maybe he has an issue with gambling addiction, it's good maybe to have someone who in the operator side who can talk to these customers and tell them, please, we've looked at your account, we see that you've been playing a lot, and we believe it's good for you to take a break, or maybe change the way you are playing. Maybe you can play once in a week. It helps to build trust with customers. Customers will feel like these guys care about me. These guys care about me, because if they were able to call me and tell me to tell me that maybe I'm winning, I'm losing a lot of money, and I need to stop playing, it will build trust to that customer. You'll know that he's dealing with a company that takes care of their welfare. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. I think you've answered that question very well. Companies need to check on which tactics they can use to get to win those customers and make them to trust them, because I think trust is the first point. Shout out to my past gaming boss, Jeff Halloran from Sahara Games, who is tuned in. Thank you very much for mentoring me and making me who I am today. And I will now take the next question to Gali. But before that, I would like to remind our audience that we are discussing about trust projects and what is leading to many operations failing in the African continent. And I would like to remind our audience that you can share in your questions or comments in the chat, and we will be sure to sample some of them with our community. Gali, when some of these investors are coming on board, and I know quite a number of them, they usually have budgets. They have a marketing budget, an operational budget, just to start up the operation. Some of them end up having to making wrong decisions at that point, because they have maybe over expectations, because they read from the internet that Nigeria is the biggest market in Africa, or South Africa, or Kenya. So they come with high expectations that if they invest a huge sum of money at the beginning, sponsoring very big clubs here and there in the first months of operation, that they will end up making. And you are shocked after 6 months or so, even before a year end, some of these operations are closed down. I know you are not perfect or well positioned to comment on the legal side of the, but Brian will weigh in on that after you. So maybe you can take it on from there and try to advise operators on which are the best strategies they can use, especially when it comes to spending. And then Brian can come in up immediately after that and tell us some of the legal challenges, because I know it's another challenge, how they can bypass that challenge.
Sure. The timing of the question is perfect. I actually had a conversation with a client of mine last night that's currently in talks with investors about their company and growing the company. And the challenges currently being faced there is, how do we appeal to investors? How do we present a business strategy that is at least, I would say, realistic? And most of the time, what you find from investors, the expectation ultimately is, what is going to be the return on my investment, and how quickly am I going to see that return? From the operator side, when it comes down to setting those expectations, I think there is a careful balancing act that needs to be really thought through about over-promising and then under-delivering. And this is something that you see across the industry, not just on the investor side, but also in the player management side. But in the specific focus of investor expectations, you cannot try and buy over investor expectations by promising them something that is just undeliverable. When it comes to setting those realistic expectations, you can't take it all on all at once. You can't do everything simultaneously, especially when you're looking at Africa as a continent which is so delicate in what works, what doesn't work. It's something that I really think operators need to think through, and in their business proposals and business strategies, work with investors about the short, medium, and long-term objectives from both sides. What is the investor looking to take out of their investment, and what is the operator going to be able to get at the same time within the designated amount of time being offered? With that in mind, yes, I'm not the legal expert here. I'm going to pass the legal side over to Brian. But the last takeaway from me when it comes to the operator side is simply a case of be transparent, make sure that your expectations are realistic, because the last thing you want to do is overpromise, because it will backfire inevitably.
Okay. Maybe I mentioned something on regulations. Different African markets have different regulations. Some don't have regulations. Some are under-regulated. Some are over-regulated. Some have changing compliance laws. Like they are still developing their regulated framework. So, as an investor or as an operator who wants to launch operations, you need to understand the regulatory status of a certain market or certain geos. Like maybe if you are going to Nigeria, if you are going to South Africa, what's their status of regulation? What is required in terms of licensing and permits? What's required from you? You need to, as an investor, you need to check on that, because in some areas, like for example in Nigeria, they requires you have licensing from the state government and the federal government. Also, same case with South Africa. It's different a bit with Kenya and maybe Ghana. The licensing laws just cover across the country. So when you are launching operations in a certain area, you need to understand the legal framework. The first thing that you need to understand is what's required in terms of licenses. The licensing cost, is it something that you can afford comfortably? Is it something that's what the permits? Is it something that you can fulfill? Because some operators want to work, they just want to bend the rules and work without following the rules. Okay, in other areas, you can work, you can also follow the rules, and you find that certain governments are trying to frustrate you from launching operations in their territories. Because especially in under-regulated territories or gray markets, you will find that there are no clear rules that guides you on which rules to follow when you're launching your operations. Also, there are no clear rules on, for example, if you want to launch a casino, if you want to launch a sport book, if you want to launch a lottery, you find that some countries have like they classify gambling as one topic. So it becomes difficult. But when you launch, they tell you, no, we gave you a license for casino, and now we see you are doing bookmakers or sport book. So those are the things you need to consider. Understand the licensing requirements of each territory you're trying to go to. After you understand apart from licensing, you need also to understand if there are regulations in terms of marketing and advertising, because you can get a license, yes, but what about advertising? How are you going to advertise in that market? If it's restricted, if it's difficult for you to market, then it will be difficult for guys to know about your brand, for people to know about your brand. So you also need to understand the regulations that are on advertising, and also cross-border transactions. You need to understand if what you've made your money in this country, are there restrictions that restrict you from moving the money from that country to your own country because you have invested in this country, you've made money, but there are some countries that restrict. You can't move money from that country to your maybe where you are staying, where the investor is staying. So those are the things that you need to look at in terms of regulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. You've touched on key points, and you even reminded me of a company. I don't want to mention names as usual. Uh, they made money in one country and they made a lot, but they were not able to move the money out. And then now they are looking for ways on how they can spend that money within that country, and they had not even budgeted for that. So it all trickles down to research and ensuring that you talk to the right consultants, because some might misguide you, because I believe that company they didn't have that information maybe when they were starting, that there are limits on how much they can move out from that country. So it's very important for you to engage several consultants and also talk to people who have been in those markets, try to get their perspective on that subject. So I will now ask Maxime to come in on this one. I know you mentioned something on tech and how it can be helpful, but I know you have a lot that you can share with us. So if you have any other points on tech, because this is, I believe, one of the backbones of the success of gaming businesses in Africa, please share with us. And as well, I would like you to add something to what was mentioned earlier about, I believe it's Gali who talked about this, that there is a disconnect between global and regional or local management, whereby companies prefer to have, and I know Dan pointed out something on that as well, that brands have an office abroad. Maybe if it's a European company, they have an office in Europe, and that office is handling tech, for example. And they have an office in Kenya or in Uganda or in Tanzania that is handling operational customer care. And they have an office in, and maybe they have another office in Asia that is handling graphics. So if somebody from Tanzania needs urgent support, they have to reach out to the global team, and it might take time before a solution is reached. And Maxime, you have a good experience. I know you are in Kenya as we speak, doing your business here. Maybe you can also share with us why it was very important for you to move from your country to come and focus on ground, like you have been doing setup across various African countries. So you can highlight to us the importance of being on ground and ensuring that, for example, the customer care teams are local, even if it's a customer care manager, the super manager, they need to be on ground so that they can know what is happening on ground. If it's a matter of tech, the system has gone down at night, it's very important that the person who is supposed to handle that should be reached very quickly. If it's a phone call, it should be very, very easy, and that calls for people being on ground. So I would like to know what you think on that as well, please, Max.
Sure. Let me start with that one, and then I tackle the technology part. So I think right now, especially, we're living in this post-COVID area, and even though many countries are returning to the offices, I would say majority of companies, from what I observe, they try to adopt the hybrid model. And I think it's perfectly fine when you have a distributed team, a team that's sitting in multiple countries. But what there are a few very important things that I would like to highlight. First, if you're focused on a particular country of operations, no matter where your tech team or your support team, your management team sits, if you are targeting, let's say, Kenya, that means that whenever there's a request from Kenya, you need to be quick in response, no matter where the guys are in Asia, Africa, America, it doesn't matter. If they're targeting this particular market, they need to adapt to this particular region and provide best service. And again, it all comes back to the customer centricity. All you need to care is customer happy? Did he receive his response quick or not? So if you can arrange your business in a way that this is done perfectly, then and you can have the team sitting in various locations, that is possible. But again, you just need to work closely on the culture, on the management of your team, so that they support these operations, and it's doable. Now, second thing is, at the same time, it's crucial to have presence on the ground. First of all, is to understand how things are done, what people are thinking, what's their culture. Second of all, you need to create a team on the ground that will understand your culture, that will understand what you want to achieve, that will then be executing this. And I don't really see how this can be done remotely. You need to be here at least in the initial phase to set up, to give this impulse. And then maybe you can spend a little less time here. But I think it's crucial that you get to the point when the team on the ground is fully responsible, can take care of your operations. Now, when it comes to support, what I also think, and that's probably point number 3, is this localization aspect, and what I mentioned earlier, this bonding creation part, right? What I also learned, it was interesting learning for me. I was thinking when launching the African operation, helping launching it here, that you can have a support center that will be taking care of several African countries. And what I was surprised is to learn that actually you should not have one customer support team, let's say, servicing Kenya and Nigeria. At least from the cultural perspective and language perspective, it's gonna be a complete disaster. Don't do it. If you wanna be successful in Kenya, set up a customer care unit in Kenya, your VIP team in Kenya. If you're doing it in Nigeria, set up a separate team there, or if you're doing both, then you need to have 2 teams. That's one of the that's one of the paths to success. So I hope I covered that, and I'd like to tackle the technology question. So Vincent van Gogh once said, "Great things are done by a series of small things brought together." So I firmly believe that in all aspects, you need to start with basics. Make small steps and then try to achieve many small wins as soon as possible. And technology is not an exception. So once you do your research and you understand on the technology part specifically, and you understand what platforms, which products, games, and features are used in the market, then which ones are favorite amongst the audience, then what you need to do, you shouldn't fall into one trap. You shouldn't see, you'll probably see some old school designs, some outdated technology, and you should not take it as if, well, we can do better, we can bring in new technology, we can bring our experience, these new cool features that nobody is aware of, and this is a wrong path. You should not underestimate the power of habits and market constraints. Look, we have poor connection quality, high costs of mobile internet. There are special browsers like Opera Mini that they completely reformat your website, and actually it can even ruin the complete experience. It might not even work if it's not optimized. In many African states, customers use feature phones, cheap smartphones. One of the things that I've done when I came here to Africa, I bought this Techno phone. I've never used it before, but I bought it because I wanted to make sure that the product, I can test products and have the same experience as people here are having. People are using multiple SIM cards and carriers for backup purposes because the networks go down, and even for payment purposes because some of the countries use mobile money quite a lot. There are solutions for street agents. Even if you intend to do online only, don't underestimate the power of the street agents. Believe me, they can be very, very effective acquisition channel. And there are a number of other features like trackable booking codes, SMS betting, pool betting with jackpots mechanics. Many modern platforms simply don't have those features because there's not much demand in other territories. So they are not bothered, introducing those. But they are impossible here. They are important here. What you will probably hear is, well, we can do that, we can develop it for you, but reality is that it might take a long time. So my advice: first, start with something that really works in the market. Second, first invest into technology that will help optimize and improve your business. Make your registration fast, smooth, and easy. Automate paying out so people that can get their withdrawals quick. Cover all major client steps with analytic tools so that you know where you fail and where you should improve, and you should react quickly. And then at the third step, start introducing new products so that you can differentiate. But be very, very patient. Don't expect that you bring in this new game and everyone is so happy. You need to educate. You need to explain how it works. You need to, develop this interest in the audience, and it takes time. So be patient. And well, I think this is one of the key parts of the success in Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know you come from a background of experience, so whatever you say can be said to be something that somebody should put to test immediately, if not now. So I think we are coming closer to the end of the webinar, and I would like to remind our audience that if you have any questions or comments, please post them under the comment section of our LinkedIn page, under this post, or on YouTube, where we are on live as well. So I'll take a question from the audience here, and I'll request our brother Bran to answer it. But before I read the question, I'd like to remind our listeners and those who are watching that this webinar was sponsored by Edge Lagos. Edge Lagos Expo is a conference that is going to take place in Lagos, Nigeria, between the 12th and 15th of March 2024. And this session has been endorsed by the Lagos State Lotteries and Gaming Authority. They are the sponsors of this webinar, and we would like to appreciate that. And we welcome more sponsors for our future webinars. And to find out more, you can always email us via info@igamingafrica.com or editor@igamingafrica.com. Africa is Africa with a K. So, Bran, there is a question from one Roberta Nichols. I believe I pronounced that word correctly. You must be watching from Malta. As we explore opportunities to establish a presence in Africa through B2B and B2C channels, you emphasize the significance of community engagement. Based on your experience, do you believe initiatives like contributing to the construction of a school will be equally impactful compared to sponsoring a celebrity player? What do you think? It's a very nice question. I like it. Thank you, Roberta, for that question.
Okay, what I will say is in both cases, they have different impacts, because building a school, sponsoring a celebrity player, they have different targets. Because if you are sponsoring a celebrity target as an influencer, so you are trying to look for an influencer to market your brand. So maybe you might be looking for acquisition, or you might be looking for retention. You might be looking for a way to attract more players or customers to your site or platform. But in the case of construction of a school, you are trying to gain trust. Also, you are trying to gain trust or give back to the community. You are trying to show the players that as much as we are playing and doing this business, we are also helping the community in one way or another. It's not just about gaming, it's not about playing, it's not about making money. It's also about impacting the community by maybe building schools, maybe boreholes, constructing water wells that can change the community. So it's different scenarios, because for a celebrity, it's more of like an influencer, but for the school, it's a CSR. Is you are giving back to the community. Yeah.
Maybe if you
Yeah,
guys
thanks.
allow me one short comment here. We mentioned before this importance of building trust. What I think companies should not do, they should not try to use CSR as their marketing opportunities, because this is clearly seen by the audience here when you're trying to fake it. If you want to do good stuff for the CSR, do it. Of course, your brand will be visible, but just don't overdo it. Don't try to pull, it everywhere that, hey, this is, I don't know, xsportsbetting.com. Don't do it. Be, very honest with your audience. Do CSR. You need to contribute, and then do your marketing as a separate thing.
Thanks for that. The next question, because of time, I'll post it to Gali. There is a question from Titus Kores. Titus Kores is asking, how do you foster cohesive collaboration and communication between teams?
I love this question because it ties in with a lot of workshops that we do. Fostering a cohesive collaboration between teams firstly starts with addressing company culture. It's very important that the same exercise that we would do to try and understand our players, the same exercise and effort that we would put into getting to know the people that we're serving, that same methodology applies internally. We need to know who works for us. We need to build a culture and an identity that we all belong to. Doesn't matter whether you've got offices in Europe, offices in Africa, offices in Asia. The reality of it is that there is a company identity. There is a set directive that everyone is working towards. Doesn't matter where you're based, we're all working for the same objective and goal as a collective. So how do we foster this cohesive collaboration, and how do we better our communication? I'm a huge advocate of team building. I'm a very big advocate of coming together as an organization, bringing in the strategic leadership teams from wherever they're positioned to come through and do workshops and do things that allow them to understand the pain points and the challenges that they are potentially facing in their own geographies, and address it cohesively from a joined perspective. So how can we address the challenges that we're facing? Where are some of our officers getting things right versus where are some of our officers doing things wrong? How have we been able to overcome challenges? And you do it as a team. Where this generally becomes challenging is if there's any form of reluctance within the organization to support and invest in the team themselves, where the ROI may not necessarily be monetary immediately, but you certainly will get an ROI on loyalty and retention of your staff, which, as we know, the organization and operational expense is one of the biggest expenses that you're going to incur as an operator. Companies need to also invest in their people. And that is something that will certainly help in this cohesive culture, and it will benefit communication long term, not just temporarily.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll post the last question to Maxim, and then I will give everybody 3 minutes to give in their closing remarks. So, Maxim, there is a question from Alessandro Lisboa. I had shared another question from him. Thank you very much for being attentive and sharing your input or questions, Alessandro. What are the best opportunities and prospects for iGaming, for the iGaming market? Is it worth investing in? Are there local solutions? Are local solutions an option, or is it still better to operate offshore? These are good questions, and because you're from the tech angle, I'd like you to give your input on that. Max.
Thanks. So what I believe is that definitely Africa is an interesting market, and it depends from country to country. They are very, very different in terms of regulation, in terms of conditions. Some markets, they have restrictions and they have certain conditions where you need, for example, to have a local shareholder, a local partner. Some markets require for you to bring in the bank guarantee and so on. So I think, first of all, what I would say is you need to look at the African market as a long-term project. I would definitely not advise to go into the African market if you expect to have quick turnarounds and then that you break even in the first year, or even sometimes second year is not easy, I would say. So first of all, you need to be patient. If you want to be patient, if you're ready to be patient, and if you're ready to go in a long-term investment, definitely Africa is one of the markets. But then, of course, you have a lot of alternatives. LATAM is growing. We have India growing as well. So I think you need to make this decision on your own, depending on how do you see your business and what do you expect from the returns. In terms of the tech solutions, I should say that there are a number of locally interesting technology solutions. For example, solutions for KYC automation. There are a number of companies that do it locally, and I think they do it much better than the solutions, than the international solutions, like a bigger company solutions, because they know exactly which documents are in use in a particular country, how do they use them, what are the cases. Second part is probably the payments. I would also recommend going in for direct integrations with local providers. There are some aggregators that are probably the companies that originate outside Africa, but they did those integrations and they provide this service as aggregation. It might be an option in the short term, but in the long term, I would definitely advise working with local providers, because that will reduce your fees and that will reduce complexity. It's already, even now, when you have a direct integration, sometimes not easy to trace what happened with certain payments. So, if you have a middleman there in the equation, it's getting even harder. So, yeah, I would say there are a number of, and even games, actually, there are now a number of providers that are developing games here in Africa that are tailored for the audience. So absolutely, there are options. So you need to mix and match here, and you should not completely exclude them.
Yeah,
I hope that provided an answer.
Yes, very, very insightful. Thank you, Max. Now we are coming to the end of this session. That's been a very interesting session. Thank you to the audience for sharing in your questions. But usually I don't like to leave any stone unturned. There is a question which is a sensitive question in the chat, but we are trying to help each other. So I'll bring it up on screen, and anybody who might have an answer to this question from second chance can maybe give him some thoughts on the same. So he says, so far the government has proved to be the enemy of the workshops like yours. I don't know if he meant workshops or businesses, or but maybe let's say that the government is, according to him, an enemy of the people. So, or an enemy of the brands, betting brands, betting companies, and the like. So, what are you doing to ensure cohesion with government entities? The reason why I brought this question up is because many people have been viewing those regulators, or the regulators, as being enemies, as he has termed it, and I quote, and we have been trying as much as we can as iGaming Africa to approach these regulators, talk to them, and try to find out what are the missions or the reasons why they are implementing some policies, or they are supporting the implementation of some policies, because finally these policies must be approved through parliament in most countries. So, and I'm excited to announce that in the iGaming Africa magazine that has just been published or released today, we have a well-detailed interview with the Kenya Director of the Betting Control and Licensing Board, Mr. Peter Mbogi. It's one of the interviews there, and therefore you can check that interview we had. Also converted that interview into a podcast that is also been announced today. So you can check on Spotify, iGaming Africa, Africa with a K. If you are more into listening than reading, then you can listen to the podcast. But if you want to read, you can check the magazine. The magazine can be accessed on issue. You just type iGaming Africa, Africa with a K. You can find that magazine there. And also it can be accessed through our website. You can go to our website and then there is a section there for magazine. It should be there, or you can type in igamingafrica.com/magazine. So I'll now allow everybody to give in their closing remarks and then we will end the webinar. Thank you very much. Starting with Gali, the way we are on the screen. We start with Gali, then Maxime, and then Brian.
From my side, it's just a big thank you to everyone on the panel for the contributions. I think the conversation today was hugely beneficial, incredibly informative. The audience questions were great. I think if there's one thing that we could probably take away from all of this is that there's still massive opportunity in Africa. We are growing. The industry is definitely open for investor opportunity. And if there's one thing to understand, it's make the time and effort to really utilize and capitalize on a knowledgeable and experienced market in Africa. We might be a young part of the industry, but there's a lot to offer. And I don't think anyone should look the other way simply because it's the African market. So that would be my closing remark for today. Thank you again, Jeremiah, as well, for having me.
Yeah, I would also like to thank Jeremiah and iGaming Africa for arranging that. It was a great panel. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much to all the listeners that joined today. It's also very important that, there seems like there is a demand and there is, people out there who are willing to listen. That's great. So thank you very much for your time. I think we of course could not touch all the topics. As I mentioned, I think there's at least dozens of areas that where you can experience challenges. We did not talk about, financial effectiveness, operational excellence, legal and compliance topics in terms of, all the details, and many, many more. So there's a lot to talk. So I recommend that you guys, if you're interested in learning more, connect with myself, Gali, Brian, Jeremiah on LinkedIn. I'm happy to also help and support your operations and your ideas. And probably the last thing I want to mention is that I think Africa, well, I can talk more about sub-Saharan Africa, of course, mostly, is a great territory. And all the countries are very, very unique, and they have such an interesting culture. And even if you dive into every country, they are so diverse. In Kenya there are many states. Uganda, same in Nigeria. They are all different. So if you want to do business in this area, I really can advise you to go there, visit, and try to understand the culture first, and try to understand the people there. It is highly important to see how they live, what they feel, what do they do, what's their life looks like. Because I should say, whenever I'm traveling from Kenya to Europe, it's like two different worlds. They are different, and I really, really love Africa because it's so unique. It's so it's magical in a way. So again, I want to say, guys, if you want to do business in Africa, you should definitely come here and talk to locals, live their life. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to thank the organizers, Jeremiah and your team from iGaming Africa, for organizing this important webinar. Also, I would like to echo the words of Gali. There are a lot of opportunities in Africa, and as much as there have been some failed operations, there are a lot of opportunities. You need just to find the right partners like us at Bizin. We have a team of consultants from tax, from licensing, from all fields of gaming. We have guys who can help you launch your business successfully. So for those who are interested, you can visit our Bizin, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message, and then we can pick the discussion from there. Otherwise, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Gali, Hatu. Thank you, Maxim Afanasev. Thank you, Brandon Lieki. And also thank you to me for being here. Thank you for accepting our invite, for being part of this session. We are going to have the next session in February, I believe, in the first Friday of February, because in this month we had a delay because of the New Year festivities. We usually have our webinars on the first Friday of every new month. So in February, we are going to have our webinar on the second day of February. That should be on a Friday. Thank you very much. Please visit igamingafrica.com for the latest news and updates from the iGaming industry in Africa. Every day we have a team that is updating content there. We have a lot to share with you. So thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure, and I hope that we will connect again, maybe in a physical event or again on a webinar such as this one. So I would like to appreciate your presence here. Thank you very much, and thank you to our sponsors for this webinar, Edge Lagos 2024. Thank you, and have a good day. Cheers, mates.